something that changed radically in the 80s, it started before the 80s, is that we essentially as a nation got rid of asylums.
Right.
It became very taboo to have insane asylums and to send people there. So that's one of the reasons we have so many homeless people now.
Right.
We have a lot of crazy homeless people.
Previously, we would lock them up.
You'd lock that guy up.
Yeah, because they are nuts.
Because they are nuts.
They do have mental issues that have to be tended to.
And in many ways...
And they're not getting care out on the street.
No, they're a danger to society
yes.
in many cases. But now we have health clinics and homeless shelters, and they get prescriptions like, I guess back then, lithium and other things. Now I'm sure they're on tons of crazy stuff now that just totally sedate them. And you see these people out on the streets and they've been made docile, you know? And I saw somebody on X blame Ronald Reagan for that. Ronald Reagan gets the blame for that, believe it or not. Okay. Ronald Reagan shut down the insane asylums. And that's why we have these societal problems now, you know, in the streets.
So I don't know that he did that. What do you mean?
Yeah. So, and these are conservatives blaming Ronald Reagan. These are the guys who are coming along who are like, everything we've been told is a lie. And he was a neocon boomer and all this stuff. Yeah. There was this big push against tradition, actually, against American tradition. But anyway, and it's coming from the right, actually, which is dangerous. But anyway.
Well, these are new right people. They weren't even born when Reagan was.
No, they weren't. That's right.
Yeah.
They were not born.
So the left has continually tried to rewrite history and try to rewrite everything that Reagan did.
Yes. And
having not lived through it.
And here's the thing, and this is a broad picture. It's too big of a point to make in such a small amount of time I'm going to take right now. But collectivism, communism, fascism, they're all forms of collectivism.
Sure.
Part of implementing a system like that is doing away with your history, doing away with the past,
Absolutely.
doing away with and rejecting where you came from a lot of the time.
Right.
So if we're in America here and you're saying America, and I have friends who adopt some of these ideas. They're not full on, like, they're not fascists or anything like that, but I see them reading these things and they go like, oh, maybe that's true. And I'm like, no, you're falling for it. Like, you know, America, like, we were founded, but our Constitution just wasn't strong enough. It's like, you know, we should have embraced tradition more. And so I'm like, no, you're missing the point. Anyway, so
I know, but to say that, you probably haven't been educated in it.
I know a lot of people have been educated, and this is where the anger and the fear and the emotions come in. It doesn't matter how well educated you are if you're susceptible to emotion and emotional manipulation. That's the truth. Because I mean, Nazis, for example, they were intellectual people. They were smart people. They had, you know, they had studies, they had books, they had scientists, and they still did all that stuff.
Right.
So the point is, how educated you are, the size of your intellect will not stop you from becoming a menace.
Right.
It won't. So anyway, but my friends are not menaces. But anyway, so part of that is rejecting tradition, rejecting the past, and resenting the people who came before you, so you can tear down and build anew.
Right.
That's the whole, like, collectivist push. So I'm seeing some people on the right do that even with Reagan, and they're saying like, you know, all these homeless, crazy people we have on the streets ruining our cities. Ronald Reagan started that by shutting down the insane asylums. And that was in the 80s. And so I looked it up. So I'm like, well, I don't want to blame Ronald Reagan for this. And I find this person to be dubious who's suggesting this, because I know this strategy that I just explained of hating the past and building anew and why that's a dangerous thing. And I looked it up, and what I found was that Carter actually federalized the system. So Carter actually, he signed a bill where the government was going to pay for all these asylums in the states.
Federal.
Yeah. President Carter.
Right.
So now the federal government is going to fund the asylums.
Right.
And Reagan, in an effort to reduce federal spending said, no. This is a state issue.
Right.
We're not going to fund this. You fund it, like you had been up until 4 years ago.
Right.
And he said, I'm revoking this federal spending for your crazy people. States. The states are supposed to handle it. And that's actually, ironically, that ideology is called federalism, where the federal government has a job, the states have their own job, and they're supposed to do it themselves without without the federal government
So what
taking
happened?
over.
They didn't open. They didn't take
So
on the job.
Right. The states did a bad job. That's right.
Yeah.
The state governments, California, New York, whatever,
Right.
basically didn't like that they were going to lose their funding, their newly found federal funding, and they decided to shutter their asylums instead of fund them. So it's the onus was on the states, and the buck was passed to the states, and the states said nope. So it's really the liberal states that did it, not Ronald Reagan. Shouldn't blame Ronald Reagan for not funding
What
it
about
with
the
federal
conservative
money.
states?
Conservative state, that's a good question. I'm not sure which states had conservative governments at the time, or what they did. But yeah, but I mean, the major cities that have big homeless problems now, they're all
So somebody
liberal states.
says that, and somebody says that, and somebody, before you know it, it's like, oh, another terrible thing that Ronald Reagan did, and
It's not true. Yeah,
and it's not true. And the thing that you were touching on, I think it's a big subject. Actually, we should talk about it one day. Is that when you erase the past like that, and you're just existing now, like I mentioned, these people now, they weren't around when Reagan was around. They're just listening to what people are saying about it.
Yep.
And if you erase the memory of the truth, then pretty soon going forward, no one has a memory to compare anything to. So they think that what is now is right, is all there is, and they don't even know what the truth is.
Right.
So they have nothing to compare it against.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.